Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sachs, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sachs.
Well, good morning, world, and welcome to another edition of Someone You Should Know, broadcasting live and without limits from beautiful Frisco, Texas. I just read something where it's called the sports capital of the USA.
That's true.
Or so because of all of our major sports, minor sports, youth sports programs, and everything. It's now being touted as the sports capital of the USA.
Perfect.
Folks, you hear that little voice in the background? That's our special Someone You Should Know, Ann Anderson. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, Stuart. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I was thinking this morning that it's probably been about 2 years or so since I think we first met at the Breakfast Club.
Yes.
And right from then, I said, someday I'd like to have you on my show. And we just never could find a date and all. And so finally I said, come on, let's stop talking about it and get you on.
Yeah, it's great.
And you are with the Ann Anderson Agency.
Yes, I am. We did that about 7 years ago.
And my first question to you is, does the agency just work with one insurance company, or are you like a broker for various insurance companies?
It's a good question. So it says Anderson Insurance Agency, Farmers Insurance. So we're a Farmers Insurance franchise. However, I frequently, if Farmers doesn't like whatever it is I'm trying to insure, I have an independent group that I work with on the side. Not the side, but
Yeah. Well, and that's good to know, because I know that trust me, and you probably do too, being in the industry, not a day goes by that I don't get a piece of mail from an insurance company for another quote. Let us compare notes. That's a lot of what a little bit of our discussion this morning is. I want to know about what's going on in the insurance industry, because they are plastered all over the TV.
Oh yeah.
Every company, and they're all trying to come up with their little characters or their little hooks, to get people to think about it, and that's a good thing. That's what you want.
Yeah.
You want an identifiable character like the gecko for Geico insurance. So the first thing that I think is, my gosh, what is going on with insurance? Are people backing away from insurance? And so these insurance companies are trying to get out there and advertise to get more people, more policies written. I mean, I assume that's the case. I just read New York Life is spending $5.5 million for a 30-second commercial on this weekend's Super Bowl.
Isn't that crazy?
And my mind thinks differently than a lot of people. But my thought is, if they got $5.5 million to spend on a 30-second spot, granted they're going to reach an audience of 95 to 100 million people.
Right.
And all, that's a lot of money that they've now got to get back in premiums to pay themselves back.
Sure. So New York Life, it's life insurance. So, excuse me. Yeah, they're, but it's advertising no different than any other company. They're going to pay lots of money for advertising. Farmers has a great advertising campaign that we've had for the past number of years with Professor Burke. We've seen a thing or two, so we know a thing or two.
J.K. Simmons.
Oh, is he great?
I love the man. I love the commercials. They are so really off the wall.
Yes.
And all.
But they're real. So once a year, they actually go out to the agency force and they ask us to send in our unique claim experience. So they want to know what has happened so they can create a commercial around it. So those are all real. People ask me that too. Are those real? Like a bear really did tear up their campsite. Yes, it really happened.
So they okay. Well, that was going to be a follow-up question is, are those just the creative mind of some advertising agencies, or are those actually taken from real claims?
They're all real claims, yeah.
Oh, I mean, one of my favorites is the moose that gets loose in the campground
Yes.
and tears up the campsite.
Yes. I like the stag party with all the deer in the pool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think I love that one. So
And being in the media as I have, and I've written a lot of commercials for businesses. The idea is you can have the cleverest commercial in the world, but if people can't remember the name of the company that the product was for, one of my favorites is going back actually is to the Super Bowl several years ago, where they had the soft drink driver comes into the 7-Eleven, and he goes over and he's putting the Pepsi in the cooler or whatever, and he looks left and right to see if anybody's watching, and he takes a Coke out of the cooler.
Yes.
And he drinks it, and he's satisfied. The problem was the commercial promoting Coke or was it promoting Pepsi? You couldn't remember which one.
Right. He was satisfied grabbing the other, but yes, exactly.
They didn't identify, just like the worst commercials are usually the ones that you remember.
Right.
Like Meow Meow Mix or so. That's for cat food.
Yes.
But that meow 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 just drives you nuts.
Yes, right. Well, and it's funny because you mentioned about and whether it's insurance or anything, and how they always want to have that hook or whatever. So I always call it the insurance zoo these days, right? Because we've got the gecko and the emu and the zebra and the elephant, and I'm like, and I in my mind I'm like, when did insurance like a product that is necessary for life become animal related? I don't. Kind of comical actually, but
yeah.
Anyway. But I love J.K. Rowling. I think Farmers did a great job getting him on board, and they've said this is the most successful campaign they've had in 20 years. And I think they plan to stick with it. It's just so good. So
one of my favorites is the guy in the little fancy sports car, the convertible, and he pulls up and he sees the birds up in the tree, so he moves the car up,
yes.
and then the cement
Mix
just drops it in his car, and then you cut to him saying that we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two, and they've got this
yes,
stuff dripping into this model car.
Yes, it's so funny.
It's funny.
It's brilliant.
But that's what's necessary, and people, I would love to put out a little trivia test or something to associate who is the character for the insurance company.
Yeah, like a little cross stick.
yeah, like Flo goes with who,
right.
and Dennis Hastert has been the voice, I think, of Allstate.
Allstate, mm-hmm.
Ever since he became popular when he was in the movie A League of Their Own.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
He was no. I'm sorry,
No?
Not Major League.
Major League.
Major League. He
Yeah.
was Serrano.
Oh my
He
gosh.
played the part of Serrano,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden now I hope that people are listening and say, "That's who that
That's
guy
where he
is.
is. That's where he's from.
That's
right.
where I know him from." But that's the identification part of what insurance is all about, and we make fun of it.
Yeah.
But the serious side of insurance is, is it fair to say that it's like one of life's necessary evils?
It is. I would agree with that.
You have to have it.
Yes.
And you're in deep doo-doo if you don't in many cases. But the biggest question, and it's one I want to carry in a little conversation with you because you're an expert in the field, is exactly how much do you need? Because your premium is based on what the amounts of the policy is.
Right. So I call it risk tolerance.
Okay.
And everyone's is different, right? So, and it's a really good question. You could be insurance poor. And I have this conversation with some of my commercial clients, or I also work with a lot of nonprofits, and you don't want them to be bankrupt because of the insurance, but, and same for individuals, but you also want to be protected the best that you can be. So, for example, I talk about my own coverage, and I tell people all the time, I'll be honest and tell you what I have and what I've done. And the coverage I have now, I had when I was 29, and I'm not 29 anymore. I'm a little bit older. And so before we had children, I put higher limits on my autos, and I took out an umbrella policy for $1 million. But I had a great insurance agent that advised me and said, you can probably play the what if game and come up with the craziest scenarios, right? So we have to ensure to the best of our abilities to within your budget, which makes sense, but also for those happenstances where when you have something really tragic or bad happen, it's just a bad day. It doesn't rewrite your entire life, right? So
Right.
when people say to me, why do you have $1 million umbrella? And you've had it since, I mean, truly since I was 29 years old, and we had our daughter when I was 30. So, I mean, you can do the math. I've had it for a really long time. Well, I've never had to use it, but if I had a car accident and I was at fault for like on the tollway hitting, I hit a car and he hits three more cars, and all of a sudden I've got all this property damage and bodily injury and who knows what else. I have limits of, truly about $1.5 million. Now, please don't sucker me into a car accident, but
No.
I can drive confidently knowing I'm covered to the best of my ability.
And also, logically, if that occurrence happens and it is a $1 million suit,
Right.
add up what you've paid in premiums
Oh.
over the years, and there is no argument whatsoever that the premiums add up to far less than what it could have cost you out of pocket if you had not had that insurance.
Exactly. And on top of it, the legal costs are not part of my coverage. They are covered by the company. In addition, it's a benefit of the policy. So
Right.
if they have a $500,000 in legal cost, they still could potentially pay out, $1 million or $2 million, whatever that umbrella is. I mean, so it gives me also that legal protection, which again, it's not even my premiums that I've paid into that over the past, 20 plus years is not even close to what the protection it gives me. So,
You brought up a word that I want you to expand upon for our listeners, and that is the word umbrella,
yeah.
because I have seen it over the years. What is an umbrella that you can add to your policy that gives you even greater protection?
So it basically, just think of an umbrella and you're putting your house and your car or your boat or anything else up underneath of that umbrella. So if, and even like for teachers, we have teacher liability inside the umbrella. So that means that it raises up all your limits. Now, an umbrella has to have, and I'm using insurance language, so I apologize, but your underlying limits. So, on your car, you see it like 100, 300, 100, right? Those limits have to be slightly higher in order for it to meet the qualifications for the umbrella insurance. So the minimum with our company is 250, 500, 250, right? The difference in premium probably is $20 every 6 months or $30. It's not a lot to get that bump
I think
up.
that's a misconception that people think, well, if I get this umbrella and it's going to cover me for twice as much as I have now,
it's gonna cost
the premium is going to be twice as much.
Right. So you have to raise up those underlying limits, and then you can purchase the umbrella. But you also get a discount when you get the umbrella. So sort of the net, I've talked to a lot of people, and they're like, oh, well, net, it's not as much as I thought it was. And it really kind of helps to soften it. The umbrella is going to cost, depending if you have kids driving, I added our daughter, we're about to add our son. My umbrella costs are going up. It's not
Right.
exciting. But again, those kids are driving. If they have an accident, they're at fault and it's bad. I can kind of rest easy and not worry so much.
Well, is it safe to say that adding them to your car probably in the long run is a little cheaper than if they get a car of their own and now they have to carry the insurance at their age of 16 or so, because the risk is higher,
Yeah.
so the premiums are going to be higher.
Right.
I mean, unless they've got a job and they're going to pay the insurance premiums, it's almost better off initially, which is what my parents did.
Yeah.
Put me on that old beater that's sitting in the garage and all, and if I need to go to the store for mom or dad, I can go, but I'm covered.
Right. So it's a lot less to add your children to your policy because you have the insurance history, no different than a credit history or anything like that. You have your insurance history. You have all the discounts of home and, and like with us, we have home, life, umbrella, all those discounts. If they were to go off on their own, they have no history. They are higher risk anyway because they're younger. They
Right.
don't have the experience. So it's definitely a lot less to add them to your existing policy. And I have parents who will say, okay, tell me what the cost is to add them. And then the child, if they're working, and maybe it's a 21, 22-year-old, they just pay that to the parents. So,
Right.
they just, as long as they're part of that household, they just, that, and that's a way to ease it, ease the cost. And then of course, eventually they're going to have to get on their own policy. But like with our company, there's a great kind of separation point where when they go on their own, we actually call it an on your own discount. which is kind of funny. But when
Okay.
they separate from the parents' policy and go to their, they get the history of all that history that they've accumulated with their family.
So they've had a clean record under the parents' policy. Now it's a little bit of a discount or a break when they go to their own policy.
Right, and that helps a little bit.
Another question I wanted to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
I go into a dealership and I decide I'm going to, say, lease or I'm going to finance a car.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the insurance company that I have to have proof of insurance in order to lease or buy the car and finance it? I'm not talking about a cash sale. I'm talking just
Sure.
about financing or leasing right now. You have to have certain limits. There's a minimum that you can have to carry on your insurance when you are leasing or financing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that amount established by the insurance industry? Is it established by the state that you get your license in, or who determines that you have to have 100 and 300 and 100 minimum?
So the state of Texas, Texas Department of Insurance sets the minimum liability limits, and
Okay.
that's what you're required to have. Now, if you finance a vehicle, you're going to be required to also have what everyone calls full coverage, which is the comprehensive piece and the collision piece, because the car dealer or the financer wants to know that they're covered in the event of an accident. But those limits in Texas, go to the Texas Department of Insurance TDI website. It's 30, 60, 25. So 30,000 per for bodily injury. It's 30,000 per person, 60,000 per accident, $25,000 for property damage, which is you run into a stop sign, you have to replace it. You run into a car, you have to fix it. But property damage, think of it that way. But I tell everybody, because if you also go to that website, it will tell you these are the minimum limits. They are not enough to cover most accidents.
Right.
So how does that resolved? It's resolved out of your own bank account, and that's why people carry higher limits. You know,
I didn't realize that the mandatory is that low.
it's really low. And I tell everyone, I talk to people all the time, and I say, I want you to drive around Frisco where we live, and tell me how many $25,000 cars you see. Just think about it. I mean, I'll tell you, I go to Palio's, and not there's a Lamborghini there.
Yeah, well, that's right.
I'm not driving by $25,000 cars, and even the car that you think is a lower end car is still a $30,000 car. That it's just not realistic.
Now, if I go into that dealership and I buy a $15,000 car off of the used lot,
Sure.
But I'm going to finance it maybe through the dealership, am I required to carry the same minimum amounts of insurance on a used car?
Yeah. So the 30, 60, 25 is on whatever, whether it's brand new car, that's just a state required minimum liability limits to show that you have insurance. And the car dealership is going to require that you show you have insurance before you take that car off the lot.
Right.
The state requires them to do that. They want that for their protection. With our clients and a policy with farmers, if you drive off the lot on Saturday with that new car, you have time, you're covered by your existing policy until you get a chance to notify your agent that you have, a new car. So I always tell everyone, don't worry, unless, I have a couple dealers that I work with and they'll text me on the weekend and I'll just quick give them fix the policy. And
Once the car, if it's financed or the used car is paid off, then you can adjust your insurance. Am I correct? You can carry like liability only.
Yep. Yeah, you're welcome to. So we go back now to the risk tolerance. So I talked. So we have this situation for a number of years personally, and so I always use, I guess, my own family situation, our own personal choices to help people. I think it's the easiest way to explain it. But we had 2 cars that were paid in full, and we still carried full coverage on them because if they were lost in an accident, they still had some value. So I wanted to make sure that I get them repaired. So the best thing is that thankfully we never had an accident, but we did have a hailstorm come through. And I had a hail claim on both cars. So, we ended up settling with the hail claim and we had a check and we were able to replace the vehicles. So, there's always that, or you could always fix the hail,
Right.
depending on the value of the car. But the car has some value even after it's paid in full. And it again, when the car becomes 15 years old, maybe at that point it doesn't matter so much. I'll tell you, if you're driving certain cars, they're much more likely to be stolen. And so at least keep the comprehensive piece so it covers theft, even if you don't want to keep the collision piece. So But those are things that's why I always want to talk to our clients. Like, let me talk to you and kind of give you the pros and cons, and then you can make an educated decision.
Yeah, and that's a great reason why people should use an agent, because you can go online and you can get all kinds of quotes, but keep in mind that whatever you're seeing quoted on an internet or website or so is going to be so pro that company to tell you that they're going to do this, they're going to do that, but in reality, you don't know whether every T is crossed and I is dotted.
Sure.
And that's the reason to have an agent. And am I correct that somebody walks into Ann Anderson's agency and wants to know about life, house insurance, auto insurance, or whatever? There's no fee to do that.
Nope, no fee at all. We do it just, I guess it's a free service that we offer. It's a service to the community. If you want to talk to us about insurance, come and talk. We'll give you information.
And I think that's an important thing. We're going to take a break for some commercials, but that's a very important point to raise prior to going to commercial is don't be afraid to call an agent. And I will tell you this, not only because she's sitting across the table from me, but I think an independent agent is a much better way to go to get your questions answered than to walk into an agency that's got 40 representatives, because I think you need to have a one-on-one with whoever is going to handle your insurance, and also the confidence of having that person handle your health insurance, your auto insurance, your house insurance, any life insurance, whatever you need, to be able to call them up and just say, hey, listen, I'm thinking about changing my life insurance. What would you recommend?
Yeah.
So we're going to come back, and I want to talk a little bit more about the various types of insurance too.
Yep.
But we'll take a break, and we'll be right back with Ann Anderson, who is someone you should know.
3, 2, 1. KVGIRadio.com.
Y'all have really just opened my bubble and just...
KVGI Radio brings you conversation and entertainment. Be sure to follow us on social media. Who streams the best talk shows? We do.
You're listening to KVGIRadio.com. Streaming live from the KVGI studios in Frisco, Texas. Live without limits.
Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sachs, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sachs.
And we are back and live with Ann Anderson of the Ann Anderson Agency. And as we get going, folks, I want you to take out a pad of paper and a pencil and all. And Ann, if people want to get in touch with you, they have a question about insurance, they want a quote on insurance, how do they get a hold of you?
They can call our office, which is 214-619-4012, and talk to myself, Denise, or Thor. We have a great staff there. And
Thor is your husband.
It's my husband. Yes. Yes,
and
he is.
Really nice guy. And thank you, Thor, for listening. And I'm not saying that just because I know you're listening. I'm saying it because you are truly a nice guy.
Yes. He's a nice guy and a fun guy, too.
He is, and a veteran.
Yes, he is.
And I thank him for his service. And
thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Yes. And he's very active with American Legion, which is a great organization.
In fact, he is the first vice commander.
Yes, he is. Yes. I don't know how long that lasts for, but
forever.
Yes.
Thor, you're in it. It's like a Supreme Court justice. You're there for life.
That's right.
And I speak. Fred Rogers would probably like that too.
He probably would. He probably would. So yeah, so you can call there. You can reach. We all have our email addresses on our website. If you go to Ann Insures TX, like Texas TX.com, it'll direct you to our website, and you can send us a message through there also, or just aanderson@farmersagent.com is my email. Okay. So Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm kind of everywhere. So
yeah, all over the social media.
All over the social media, and I give my cell phone out to everybody. So I mean, I'm kind of, I guess I can give it out. I mean, I give it to everybody else. So it's 491-7618. I tell all of our clients, you can text me or call me. So, whichever. And
in parentheses, I even have Ask Ann Anything.
Yep.
And that is also the title of a little blog that you do.
Yeah, it's a video blog that I do with Lifestyle Frisco. It's really fun, actually. It's kind of a new thing. And we talk about everything insurance, Frisco, kind of anything. It's not just insurance related.
And folks, it's a good way to get to know Ann. She's got a great personality. And by the way, that's AnnInsuresTX.com.
Correct.
And it's ANN, not ANNE.
Not Ann with an E. That would be a Netflix program.
Right. Which, do you watch that at all?
We just finished
Ann
it.
with an E? Yeah. We watch it religiously, too. I love it. It's a great one. I want to take care of one other piece of business before I get back into some more questions.
Yeah.
This show is brought to you in part by Wheel to Survive. It is a cycling program that's coming up in the middle of February. It is for the benefit of Be the Difference Foundation, which helps women with ovarian cancer. It's based right here in Dallas, Texas, and the event is a cycling event from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. It's going to be at Gilley's Southside Music Hall. You can go to www.wheel2survive.org. Please go on the website. If you and some friends want to get a team together and go and ride for the benefit of ovarian cancer research and awareness, please do so. And if not, I ask you with all my heart to make a donation, $5, $10 donation to Be the Difference. It helps get women to their trials so that they can find out what their options are if they are diagnosed with ovarian cancer, which is a silent killer. It's touched my family, and I hope that it'll touch yours also to do something. But that's Wheel to Survive is the event, and it is on the February 23rd from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. Any questions? Get in touch with me, and I'll give you all the information.
Great organization.
Yes, they are. They are good people. And John Mize, who is the director of the event, kudos go out to you, John. We love you a lot. Going back to insurance.
Yes.
And I know it's a subject that people, it's like talking about going to the dentist. Do I have to? Yes, you have to have insurance.
Yes.
and it's important. And you touched on, I'll go back a little bit to life insurance. If you're a young couple, just got married and everything, you want to have a certain amount of life insurance.
Yes.
Once the little kiddos come along, you want to have 2 or 3 times that, because keep in mind that the important thing is, should anything happen to you or your wife, don't forget that. Not only just the main breadwinner, but mama also needs to have an insurance policy too. If anything happens to one of the parents, what's going to happen to the children? There are going to be expenses that are they're going to take into account, whether grandparents come in, whatever happens to keep the family going
Right.
through a tragedy. Now, term insurance is the cheapest form of insurance.
Yep. Yes, it is.
There's universal insurance, which is like a savings account also. And what you mentioned earlier is, as you get older, maybe you don't need quite as much insurance.
Yeah.
As a senior citizen, I've had a fairly good career in life, and I've got money that's in investments and all right now. So I don't really need to be paying huge premiums to carry a large amount of life insurance. Pure and simple. I mean, I know maybe it sounds a little crass to say it. I just need enough out of that insurance policy for my final arrangements.
Correct.
That is where I need to be now. So to be paying thousands of dollars a year to get $200,000 worth of insurance, which, yeah, it's going to more than pay for my burial expenses. But if I have other investments that will cover that, then why put that money there? Why not use that for other reasons?
Yeah. So you're in a different stage of life is basically what you're saying. So couple things you know about young family. They need more bang for the buck is what I say. Term
Yes.
insurance gives them that. But they should also look at something permanent that'll take them to the end of their days. And there's life insurance policies that can act like not an investment because we don't want to use that language, but it can act like something that that allows you to put money aside. There's a lot of different types of permanent insurance now, where we used to just have the whole life policy that we pay
Whole
the
life or
premium.
term, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get so much at the end, and the premium is fixed from whenever you get that insurance. But now we have other options for permanent insurance, and some of those turn into something you might have heard of, what they call life insurance retirement plan. It's a LIRP, is what they call it, and it's where you leverage that life insurance to be part of your retirement plan. So it's not your full retirement plan, but it's money that you can pull out later in life. But you're exactly right. When you have a young family, the kids come along, you have a lot bigger expenses. You want to make sure that they're okay. I've heard people say, well, my wife doesn't really work, so if something happens to her, it's no big deal. And tell that to the pilot who, I know a pilot who lost a wife, and you know what? You can't fly as a pilot if you don't have somebody taking care of your kiddos. And thankfully, he had made the proper arrangements if something happened to his wife, because although she didn't work, she did work. Those stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home dads, they provide a very valuable service to their family, for lack of a better way to say it. There's value to what they do, whether it's, shuttling the kids back and forth, all the things. So who's going to take care of that?
And I'll take it a step further. The day my children were born, we took out a life insurance policy on them.
Yes.
Certainly the premium is extremely low take out that policy as soon as they're born.
Yep.
Why? Just in case within the first couple of years they're diagnosed with some kind of a treatable disease. It doesn't have to be life-threatening and all. It just could be something like a severe form of croup or something. But it means that there is maybe that slight possibility that through treatment the child could pass.
Right.
Well, not only is that a devastating thing to any family, but to know that you also have taken care of any of those expenses related to it.
Yeah.
And it's an important thing that if you have children, it's never too late. If your children are of school age, you just don't know what's going to happen on the playground. You just don't know what's going to happen when they run into the street after that kickball. So it's important. Call your agent and say, what are my options? It might surprise you how little it is.
It's so inexpensive to insure a child. We can insure a child when they are 14 days old. That's the youngest. I will tell you from personal experience, we have 2 children. Our son was diagnosed with autism, and we've had, he's had different treatments throughout his life. He's certainly in a much better place now than he was when he was 10. But I will tell you that when I went to put his life insurance policy together, I could not write his policy because of his medical records until he's 18. They can pull those medical records. So for when you're insuring a child, they don't do the background medical report. It's an up or down, yes or no, right? Well, he had when he was an infant, before he was 3 months old, he was in the hospital with breathing issues, taken there by ambulance. I mean, so there's a lot of factors that made him ineligible for life insurance. He should have had that written when he, and I was not an insurance then, but an agent then, but I should have done that when he was first born, right?
Right. Right.
Now our daughter, she has a great policy. We put it together when she was younger. It's very when you say inexpensive too, it's like $20 a month, and she has $150,000 policy on her. It just sets them up for life so that she has options. If your child is diagnosed, like you said, whether they have an illness as a child, which was the case of our son, whether they have even a diagnosis that would prevent them from getting life insurance in the future, you've basically protected them for their entire life. And that's what we do as parents, right? We want to protect our kids.
There's also a key word in there too, and there are waivers that very often are part of that insurance policy,
right,
which gives you an option, say every 5 years, to convert all or any part of that in that policy, say it's a term policy, maybe to double the policy for a minimal amount. Or to buy, let's say you are diagnosed with something. It gives you that option every so many years to, without
increase it,
without having to prove any kind of medical issues, which could prevent you from getting the policy in the first place, to allow you to increase that amount of your insurance.
Yes, exactly. So those permanent policies are written with riders built in. That allow you.
I said waivers. Didn't I?
It's okay.
It's a rider.
It's a rider, but it's either to increase at certain life events. So like graduation from high school, graduation from college, marriage. There's like 6 events in your life that you can increase the policy up to a certain amount. But again, it's just creating that guaranteed policy or that life protection that you don't have to worry about later.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right, I'm going to switch because there's so many different kinds of insurance.
Yes, so much.
Home insurance.
Yes.
Every year you get a notice from the tax clerk, and it shows the assessed value of your home.
Correct.
Now, let's assume you bought your house for $300,000. Then all of a sudden, after a few years, now all of a sudden, that assessed valuation shows that your house is worth $380,000 or so. Now, is it necessary to go back and review that and adjust your homeowner's policy? Because that number, that $380,000 now, isn't that based on what the replacement value would be for your home?
So there's 3 different assessments for your property.
Okay.
There's the tax assessed value.
Folks, jot this down.
These are the important. Yeah, there's the tax assessed. There's the appraised value, what someone would buy your home for. And then there's the insurance value. And we're doing reconstruction costs. So that's a really important word, reconstruction. And I'm going to give a not great example. When the tornado went through Wiley, Rowlett area, remember a few years ago?
Right.
And so many homeowners were underinsured and they couldn't rebuild their homes. That's because their reconstruction value was not at the right levels. So I can speak to what we do in our office and what Farmers requires, but we use a third party who updates their numbers every 3 months. And so they are looking at current market cost of labor and materials to rebuild a home. So we don't just make the number up. And we honestly, our hands are tied. I can't underinsure a home because you're going to pay a lot more in premium, number one. And plus, when a company underinsures like your house to 80% of the value, any claim you make is going to be 80%, right? So whether it's a roof claim, a personal property
lightning
claim,
strike, or
anything,
yep.
is going to be 80%. It's immediately you lose 20%. So that reconstruction value is really important. And sometimes I get people, I have this conversation where somebody lives in a much older home and they're like, why is the reconstruction value so much? Well, think about it. When you buy the house and you buy it from a builder, they're building 50 houses so they can buy in bulk. But when if that 50-year-old house is hit, or 100-year-old house, and they need to rebuild it, they're buying lumber for one house and you're paying a contractor for one house, right? Not 50. So you don't have that bulk pricing for,
Right.
it's so, but we want to make sure that your reconstruction value, we can rebuild your house. Now, I know that with farmers, they do look at it every, they kind of go through, and at renewal, the company actually looks at it, and we encourage reviews with our clients every year. And they get emails from us that say, hey, call us for a review. And of course, if we're talking to them on the phone, we'll say, hey, it's been a while, let's get a review in here. And that the whole point of that is to sit down and kind of say,
which there is no charge for.
No charge
to review.
Nope, none.
Yeah.
But the whole point is to sit down and say, it's been a year, and what's changed, and sometimes people say, oh, I bought a really expensive piece of jewelry, or I bought a boat. I probably should have told you that. Things
Right.
like,
And that's a rider.
yeah, right.
You,
or
you can add that to your policy.
for the jewelry, exactly.
You buy some expensive art to put on the wall. If it gets stolen, you want to be able to claim that.
Exactly.
That becomes, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
That becomes either a rider, or that could become part of that umbrella that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, so it would be covered. So especially art and musical instruments, if they have a rider, their deductible is not subject to the policy deductible. So it's if your policy deductible is $3,000 and you have a rider, or some call it a floater, it's subject to its own deductible. So that could be nothing, or it could be a couple $100. So
Right.
that's, I do have clients who are art collectors, and they have those pieces insured separately, and you'd be surprised how minimal the insurance is inside of that. Of course, we also encourage people to have an alarm system on their home and things like that.
There's discounts for that.
Yep,
The
absolutely.
more precautions that you take, and more proactive you are about insuring and protecting your home, the better.
Right.
If someone is renting a home, or they're renting an apartment, there is renter's insurance.
Yes. Oh,
And
love renter's
some
insurance.
people say, well, nah, I don't really care about it. It's not my house. If there was a fire, it's the owner's responsibility. The only thing is, you could lose everything that's in that house.
Right.
And that is of a value that you would want to reclaim in order to move your life forward.
Yeah.
I mean, just in an open discussion like this,
Yeah.
a catastrophe in a home does not mean that the whole house is going to burn to the ground. It could be that there is just enough damage in the house that maybe something burned on the stove and it burned out the kitchen. But you also get water damage from the fire department that comes in. So it is not the entire cost of the home. It's just going to be the cost of the repair.
So I will tell you that in most fires, the fire department does more damage than the fire. And people they're like, what? Think about it. They're soaking your home with water.
That's right.
And water turns into mold. It's pervasive. It goes everywhere. But they have to put out that fire. So they're doing their job, and we're thankful for it. But yeah.
And I will tell you, you can go down to Home Depot or to Lowe's, and for anywhere from $12 to $15, you can buy a very effective fire extinguisher.
Yep.
And I encourage anybody who owns a home, even if you have a rental property, go out and buy one and put it underneath the kitchen sink, or someplace where you know that if there is an incident, you can take charge of the situation. And if you have a home, if it's let's say a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home on a single level, have at least 2 or 3 fire extinguishers.
Yeah. And know how to use them.
That's right, and you can go to the fire department to learn how to use them too.
Exactly.
They have classes in that, or sometimes even at the Home Depot, they will show you what to do.
I want to tell you about renter's insurance. One thing, and because people think you're right, they think that it's not necessary, and it's not just the contents. I will tell you a very real story recently, and there was an electrical panel issue at an apartment complex here in Frisco. We insure somebody who lived there, and they didn't have water damage, but they couldn't live in their apartment because the electrical panel caught on fire, and so that whole building had to be evacuated. My client went to a hotel. I don't know where everybody else went, but he went to a hotel and Farmers paid for it. And then when they still couldn't get in, he ended up, Farmers paid for him to move out of the apartment. So he had to relocate. The apartment let him go from his lease. They found a new place to live, and Farmers paid for the movers. So that's huge, right? I mean,
yes.
that was a few $1,000s, and renter's insurance is pennies. I'm telling you, it's less than going to McDonald's or Chick-fil-A for lunch. But he's like, I love it. You guys took such good care of us. So, and part of that too is he talked to us because he paid for that mover, and we were discussing the claim, and he said, he told me that, and I said, did you let your adjuster know? And he said, no, I didn't. I'm like, why? You call your adjuster, and it was over $800 that the company went ahead and paid. But that's renter's insurance. He had a place to stay. That's important. And
that's
then
peace of mind.
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't.
It's also like some people will waive off of towing and on-site with their auto insurance in order
roadside
to
assistance, right.
bring that policy down.
Yeah.
The other way that you can bring your insurance premiums down, let's say homeowners insurance or so, is as you become more set in your life. Maybe you have more money in the bank. What you can do is you can raise your deductible.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, take a little bit more of that initial financial hit.
Yeah.
So instead of having a $500 deductible, let's say you are financially capable of handling $2,000 or $3,000 on an occurrence. Raise the deductible, that will lower your premiums.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially on auto. I have a lot of clients now that will have $1,000 deductible, and it's twofold. It's kind of funny because the one client once told me, he said, well, that makes me think twice before, a lot of times they'll just take care of it themselves if they bump into something,
right.
Not somebody else, but like a little scratch or whatever.
You back your car out of a thing, back into a tree
a post or something.
Or so.
They're like, I just
I've
think
done
twice.
that.
Yeah. I'm not going to file a claim. But, they just think of it differently. There's a different mindset. But it also does reduce that premium significantly because, again, their risk tolerance or their skin in the game is higher. Yeah. So, yeah.
I'm looking at, is that we have a minute until the end of the show already? We haven't even covered half of the notes that I've got because there's other insurances.
So much.
And I may have to have you come back because I think insurance is an extremely important subject that people need to know about. But in the meantime, you can go to AnnInsuresTX.com. You can get all the information you need, the phone numbers, and I urge you, if you have a question, call Ann.
Yeah.
And just say, I need some direction. I'm thinking about buying a new car, and what should I do? Should I finance it? Should I lease it? There's questions. Ann can give you the answers.
We can, and we're happy to do it too.
And I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to come over and be on the show. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Very best to you. Ann Anderson, who is someone you should know, and make it a good day, and come back next Friday and join us for another show.
Thanks.
Bye.